I'm Lisa Starr. This is Resonant Truths podcast, Natural Time, Mayan Astrology for a Modern Age. And I do this podcast on the podcast platforms, but on the weekend I do it on video. And here we are. It's designed for beginners, new people coming to the Mayan calendars for the first time. So I'll say very briefly that natural time refers to a way of incorporating ancient Mayan teachings into our modern life, rediscovering them so that we have an alternative to the Gregorian calendar, which I want you to know I'm not trying to eradicate or replace, but we would follow a calendar that's based on indigenous teachings, ancient teachings, looking at the sky much more than creating bureaucratic time counts based on deadlines. And the papacy, the Pope Gregory, who created the Gregorian calendar in like the 14 or 1600s, a long time ago. We've innovated every part of our lives except maybe calendar time. And this is not an innovation at all. Instead, it's a regression backward. But the Maya were incredible, accomplished mystics. And so when we follow their calendar cycles, I think we drop into their access to the mystical world, the other world, the unconscious, or the supreme divine world. I mean, whatever it is, it feels magical. So I spend time trying to introduce people to the concepts and track the calendars we move through it so that you can discover the magic. A really basic part of the teaching, which I focus on here, is that there is a 260-day calendar called the Zolkin, which was a spiritual count for the Maya, and it documented or tracked the same length of time as gestation in the womb. So it's a 9-month calendar, and I am here to help you break it down into 13-day lengths of time. Within the 260, there are 13-day wave spells, and they're stretches of time that are shaped like a wave in how they move. They're not a flat line. It's not a calendar grid, but instead it's shaped like a wave that builds to a peak and then breaks and then kind of reconstitutes itself. But the build is much longer than the break, right? It takes a long time to get to the point or peak of a wave, and then it collapses really quickly. That's the form of a wave spell we follow here. And each wave spell is named for the first day of the wave spell, which is always one of the 20 tribes that the Maya chose for reverence. They revered or saw as fundamental a circle of life, if you will, 20 aspects of their culture, their civilization. So that's enough beginner stuff. I have people that are here who are not beginners, so each time you can get a little beginner hit. Hopefully you can follow the information based on your beginner hit. And of course, go to resonanttruth.com if you want more of my intro work. And I have a book there you can buy that's very intro. It's like a primer for learning about the calendars. Okay, so that said, in current time, we're in the white mirror wave spell of 13 days. And today is actually the day the wave breaks. And so this is a retrospective, mostly what I want to talk about, because it's been really trying to make it through this white mirror time. It's not the first trying wave spell we've had. It's been the last of a sequence that are sort of designed to be trying, designed, I guess, to make modern people confront some of the ways that we're not authentic and true now that we're civilized and not primitive or primal or pagan. So this white mirror wave spell is an exploration of death by sacrifice, which was a famous Mayan ritual, and the white mirror represents. And I don't know if you didn't feel at some point, especially maybe in the last few days, that you had your heart cut out on an energy level. It felt like something crushing and confrontational happened that really made you feel torn open with frustration and fear and confusion, which I think is grappling with, you know, what would have been happening. Like, I am about to die, but it's an ego death that we're working on right now. And I have been. I mean, I could fill the whole time with you, just regaling you with stories of how confrontational, meaning inwardly, like the confrontational part of my karma and fate right now, just recognizing the ways that my ego is very hung up in fear of being hurt anymore, and that's a strong common identifier for women, and not only women, but I think it's almost universal for women, that there has been a lot of damage to our collective feminine experience. And so I have to confront how full of guardedness I am against more, or is it safe to trust, and all of that. So I mentioned that just because the kind of searing part of white mirror for me, the sacrificial part where I give part of myself up in order to get closer to divinity, which is what the sacrifice, any sacrifice ceremony represents, like letting go of what's here around us in order to be connected to what's above or greater than. So in that process, it's just, like I said, it's very physically, like energy turns into physical pain, or emotional pain becomes almost all-encompassing and guttural, and all reminds me of what it looks like to do this human sacrifice moment. So anyway, it's been a ride, and I've talked to enough people to know that everyone's grappling in a part of their life that's maybe seems primary, at least it has for a few days, with not having control, having things seem endless, having them be really primally painful, and loss. Yeah, some kind of loss. And that's not that different than what we've been going through for several years. And I want to point out again that in the Gregorian calendar, which starts obviously January 1st every year, I mean, it's always on January 1st, which falls on a day within the Tzolk'in calendar. The Mayan spiritual calendar is 260 days, just end on end, so it doesn't sync up with any year. It doesn't begin at the same time as the Gregorian year or the Mayan year, which starts on July 26th every year. But if you identify the Gregorian years we pass through that start on January 1st, for 7 years, we've been in a white mirror 13-year wave spell. So this moment of white mirror that we're caught in for 13 days is very representational of the bigger problem on our planet, where we follow universally practically the Gregorian calendar. So we're all aligned with the Gregorian time, and the Gregorian time is aligned with currently human sacrifice in terms of Mayan astrology. So I thought that this last 10 days was just sort of a perfect storm of encapsulating some of the larger struggles that have existed, just as a benchmark since Donald Trump took office that January 1st after the election he won, which would have been 2016. That was the beginning of the white mirror 13-year wave spell. So probably you don't like Trump if you like me, but if you do like him, you can think of it any which way you want, because plenty of the people that follow him feel like they're being forced into hardship and the sacrifice of their goals and peace and ideals. So it's kind of on all sides of the spectrum, but it is a very tumultuous time. And the other thing I had pointed out before that I'll do here, it's not a very beginner idea, but just track with me if you can, is that there's a 52-year cycle. It takes 52 years for a 260-day cycle and a 365-day cycle. So the year and the Tzolk'in, for them to meet again, takes 52 years. So when you're born, I was born on a day called Blue Overtone Storm in the Tzolk'in, and it was on November 23rd, 1968. And when it was November 23rd, 1969, it was not Blue Overtone Storm. That happened 260 days after I was born. So it took 52 years until I turned 52 on November 23rd, 2020, for it to be Blue Overtone Storm again on my birthday. And the same thing is true of your birthday and every day. So there's a 52-year completion cycle. So if we count back 52 years from now, 2024, it's 1972. If we count back 52 years from 2016, it would have been 1964. And that would have begun the white mirror wave spell for 13 years. It started in 1964 and lasted until, 1977? But in any case, we're right in the heart of something that was historically very difficult to get through also. 52 years ago, there was a draft for Vietnam. People were dying there for no reason at all, which is a familiar theme. There was Nixon as president and all this tumult around him. It was just there's words for what it was. It was a difficult period, and we're in one again. So I just put all that out there because it's a bigger picture way to endure like localized day by day hardship that we grapple with. And it's not day by day, like mine have added up. I remember after 1 year of white mirror, the wave spell, meaning I think in my mind 1 year of Trump, since he was elected, which would have been fall of 2017, I had to get 2 more dogs. I already had 2 huskies. I wasn't trying to get 4 dogs. I was trying to help my daughter get 1 dog, but I found this pair of twins. And I think in my mind, I was like, I'll give her 1, and then the other one we'll give to someone else. Well, she couldn't end up having 1, and I couldn't end up getting rid of them. So I had suddenly extra dogs, and they saved my life. They made me feel comforted, and they go wherever. They're my little mirrors. Wherever I go, they have to be. And I used to think that would be suffocating, and it ended up being totally sustaining, necessary to sustain me. So I think that it's just really common and current in our moment to grapple with big picture ideas, but also admit that we're feeling it in a localized moment by moment struggle. And maybe not all the time. And when we finally got sun here after it seems like 2 months, and there is rain on the forecast, but just, there's a liberation when the weather changes that just truly affects one's mood, right? That's natural time as well. Natural time is just noticing that we are reactive to nature, something larger than ourselves, that we are nature. We have nature and responsiveness in ourselves that isn't, dictated by decisions we can make. Our body warms to light and heat. So all of those things are good news. I just am mostly here right now in this moment to congratulate everyone who's been through some struggle around the white mirror time, because when the wave breaks, so does the ascent, meaning the sort of dominance, this moment in time where it all is about white mirror growing like a wave that we can see, that we're forced to ride, that breaks us through, paralysis or chaos and lifts us to the light. But it's all in the vein, each wave spell, of a particular tribe. When the wave falls apart, the power and the energy of the tribe that has dominated the last 10 days also breaks. The wave breaks, and so does white mirror's hold on us. And we're released into a tribe always, this is always true on the 11th day, that is the opposite but balancing to the tribe we've been celebrating. So white mirror is opposite and balanced by yellow star. And today's yellow star. So today, white mirror loses its like heavy focus and orientation in our lives, and we fall into yellow star, which is complicated, but in the simplest terms, it's just the beauty that we see when we see a star in the sky. It's a jewel. It's a jewel we don't have to shape or find. It just lives there. And so it's resilient and strong and inspiring. And on Yellow Star Day, I think we are stunned by beauty. We're awed by beauty, and I think we look beautiful. I laughed because I slept on wet hair, and now I'm on the podcast with like a little bit of a wave, you know? And I have my, I'm wearing purple. Every time I've been on here, I've worn gray to match the weather and the wood in my attic. But, you know, it's just like a little funny thing where you want to beautify. And I just think that if that's opposite but balancing to white mirror, it means that we've been living kind of devoid of beauty or inspiration or resilience. We've been focused on a ceremonial act that takes place in a rarefied atmosphere at the top of a Mayan pyramid. It's lonely, it's not communal. It isn't a very organic time, actually. It's orchestrated. It was a very egoic part of the Mayan civilization. It's where they erred, really, the concept that the gods wanted something from the people. I think we recognize that there's a much purer supreme being that is complicated in terms of how it influences human will and ego on earth, but isn't itself egoic and needing to be fed, you know, feed me bodies. That's how humans like put an overlay, like I want power by defeating others. So maybe these gods want to see some human bodies and lives defeated in order to be placated. And so they were wrong. That's, I think, tactically incorrect and inauspicious, but it's a part of life on the planet that even if we're not sending men, women to war to die or what have you, because we do human sacrifice rituals in a much more discreet way, or maybe it's more ostentatious even now, but we all live through sacrifice. Like every time you break up in a relationship that started from heart connection and love, most relationships, I mean, I guess not most, but I would think many start with the idea of something peaceful and illuminating and blessed and warming, you know, compassionate, connective love. And when they blow apart, that's a sacrifice. It's the same thing, and maybe more current for you, part of your story right now. And then, well, okay, so we got to flip. We got to flip to what's coming this week. I'm tired of living through and talking about white mirror, and it is good when we have hard wave spells and then the wave breaks. It can be like, thank you. That is such a relief that we're not climbing on the back of such an incredibly arduous lesson, you know, that I had to grow the growing pain of white mirror. Like, that's fine if it's dispersing. Sometimes a wave spell is just like, you love it so much. Maybe you'll feel that way about Blue Monkey, which is next. It's like playful and childlike and magic and silly and light-hearted. And maybe you'll just be so enthralled with being like a monkey or a child that you'll be, when the wave breaks and it's over, it's like the end of a play date. You know, you're tired and don't have a good way to cooperate with it ending. And then when the wave breaks, it feels like kind of highway robbery. I was doing great. Or it's somewhere in between. But currently, I imagine that there is going to be some release. The last thing I want to point out is that the white mirror wave spell is the final of the first 10 wave spells of the Tzolk'in. The Tzolk'in has 20 wave spells. 20 times 13 is 260 days, and there's a wave spell for each of the 20 day signs or tribes. But the first half ends with this wave spell. So the first 130 days is organized around 10 tribes, and the second 130, 10 others. And there just happens to be in the first half of the Tzolk'in 5 sizably challenging wave spells in a row. And this is the end of it right now, the next 3 days. So We transit not just from white mirror to blue monkey, but from the first half of the Zolkin to the second this week. And I just want you to have that experience. I don't like promising future developments or dynamics like, okay, you guys, blue monkey, just hold on, it's going to be amazing. I have learned that in modern times, i.e. the white mirror wave spell of 13 years, we're currently in year 8. So we have like 3 years before the wave breaks, actually. But we'll make it. But in the larger picture, where we're still kind of struggling with sacrificial experiences, it isn't yet time to be like, we're almost to the end of this really hard part. It's time to grapple with enduring hardship. And you can think about people in the parts of the world where we have so much empathy, but we're not actually experiencing, whether it's Ukraine or Russia or the Middle East, name a country, with certain epicenters that are the most horrific. Like, yeah, struggle is real right now and pervasive, and we're all connected in awakening awareness of each other in a way that didn't exist as much before the internet. So it's a lot to grapple with. And we're grappling its endlessness, like the White Mirror tribe expresses. So if you feel like left in a lurch and you didn't get enough soothing information, then tune into the podcast. It's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it's there to like help you limp through or leap through if it's going great. And I really love sharing the information. So that would be Natural Time on the platforms. And I'm Lisa Starr. I am another yourself, and in Mayan we say, in Lakesh.